We're at the Randwick Sustainability Hub, and this is an amazing place. Behind us we've got the Native Habitat Trail, and we'll be looking at some of the plants in and around these gardens here. So we're on Gadigal and Bidjigal land, so important to pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to say welcome to everyone here, and welcome to all of you in Zoom as well. And we've got Daryl Nichols from Grow It Local, which is a fantastic platform to connect all of us as growers together. So check it out, growitlocal.com. Randwick Council is behind it, and it's a really nice way of, if you've got compost to share or skills to share, even if you've just got a pot of basil on your kitchen bench, you can list that as your patch.
Thanks for having us, Julian.
Yeah.
Steve.
So we're pretty sure we've got this sound thing working well. So can all of you here please speak loudly so that people in Zoom can hear? But similarly, a bit different to normal. I know on Zoom we're trying to do everything on chat, but there's only one of me, so I won't be so much behind the camera, the computer. So please just thoughtfully call out questions or comments when Steve's asking for them. And over to you. Thank you.
Away we go. Thanks, Julian. Yeah, so week 2. So this week's all about how do we what is this thing that we're trying to create? What is a habitat? What is an ecosystem? What is it? So, but before we do that, we'll go back to last week and just do a quick review. You guys on Zoom and all you guys, what's something you remember from last week?
Mud maps.
Mud maps? What about mud maps?
We use them to help design our garden or our space.
Yeah.
And really think about the longevity of the garden the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah. So your mud map is your sort of your drawing, your base plan. What else did we do?
Talk about where the wind impacts on ourselves.
Yep. So I don't know if you guys picked up on that one, where the wind comes from on your site, and other things like the sun. And do you remember what it was called? The process? Yeah, site analysis. So it was all about reading the landscape and understanding your garden or your space, and getting all that information in before you even think about starting to do any design. Why is that important? Come on, Zoomers.
Correct place for plants.
Yeah, yeah, it helps inform your decisions around what you plant where. Different things grow in different conditions. Yeah, it just informs the design, so it helps you, moving forward, decide where things will go and why. You've got a reason behind it. So one of the next things you might do in the design process is a thing that we might call in the design world, and you might know this one from the Food Forest course, is a design philosophy. So an overarching reason or thing that you're trying to actually achieve. So if you're going to create something, you want to have an end goal in mind, I guess, about what exactly that is. And today's a little bit about that. It's thinking about, okay, well, what actually are we trying to achieve here? We're talking about habitat for birds and insects and frogs and lizards. What does that mean? What does that look like? So why don't you tell me? So just throw out there, what is it that you're here for? What are you trying to kind of achieve or create? First in.
Animals. So, I mean, the symbiotic relationship, right? So you need those insects and birds and because of the same as
Yep. Did that got a roving microphone now? Yes. So the plants and the insects and the animals all working together in symbiosis. Yeah. Anyone else?
I think if you've got a plan for planting, then you've probably got a better working garden, rather than having something that is in the wrong place and then takes over and then you lose other things. That's my problem.
So coming here and learning or thinking about your design and having an actual plan about what you want to create. Yeah. Yeah. it's a great idea. It's better than just, well, bunging stuff in. That's a valid way of doing things, but maybe there's the consequences are quite different probably to planning it through. What about in terms of what your garden you're in? What's it going to be like? What's it about?
I wanted to say something.
Yes. Go for it.
Yeah. For me, it's sort of about, because I'm used to working on as a human in a garden, I'm wanting to get a perspective on what it's like, sort of having my eyes right down on the ground in terms of seeing lizards and insects and stuff, sort of turning the world upside down and looking at the idea of ecosystems from another angle that's less human focused.
Yeah, nice.
While we're on
garden about animals rather than humans so much.
Yeah.
Another one from Zoom.
Yeah.
So I'm a member of an established community garden, the Randwick Organic Community Garden. I'm a new member, and so I'm trying to understand some of the original concepts, mindsets, philosophies that went into creating the garden as it is, so that I can continue that as well.
Yeah, cool. Okay. All right, good stuff. I think there's a spider crawling around on our microphone, which is fantastic. That's just exactly what we're looking for. The spider webs flying around the place. Yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyone else?
I think it's to enhance your own life as well, so that you can exist in the garden with all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great having a garden, but if you as a human aren't going to be able to get out in that space and run around, or if you've got children, so that they can enjoy the garden as well. And you might have a veggie garden you want to harvest, so it's great to have a lovely space that you can enjoy and be in as well. In concert with creatures.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, nice.
From the Zoom, can I add just one thing? Can we say that it's good for them to work for us as well, to do the work that we don't have to do, and they're really important, being like a bit lazy in that sense. I hope they do my job.
Yeah, totally. Really good point. There's a whole, the animals that live in your garden, they look after it for you if you design it. If you design it in a way that allows them to do that, and it saves you work, definitely. Good point.
I just wanted to throw in regardless of what I want at my garden, also how does it fit into the existing landscape in that area, and then maybe take that into consideration. That's just what I got from the last workshop.
Cool. So lots of different reasons. It's really nice. It's everyone's. So that's diversity. That's one of the key themes that we're working with. So we're going to do. So today we'll look at what is a habitat. What is an ecosystem? How do we, and that will inform how we go about creating one. I'll quickly, this is not a quiz. This is just a good way for you to remember what we did last week. Does anyone remember what this is?
Serrata.
Yes. Cool. Banksia serrata. And is that a tree, shrub, or ground cover?
Tree.
Too easy. This one.
Coria alba.
Yep. Coria alba.
Shrub.
There's some there. We didn't have one last week. I don't have one this week either. What was the other one that we did? Yeah, the native violets, little ground cover. We used to be masses of them there, but I think the drought finished them off. So we'll do three more trees later at the end. So do you guys want to? Oh, we can't. We might have to stand up and form a big circle, so everyone's 1.5 meters apart, but you can see the table. I want to use this piece of paper here just to tell you the story of ecosystems and how they're created, and then that will hopefully lead us to a good understanding of how to make them, how to make a diverse one for lots of animals and lots of critters. So, I'll start with a soil surface. So this is up.
Costa says hi, Steve.
Hey, Costa. All right, so let's start from ground zero. Imagine you've got your space and you've done your site analysis and you look around and there's nothing but bare ground. Hopefully that's not the case, and I don't think it is the case with a lot of you guys. You'll have existing things that you want to work with. But if you've got bare ground, habitat value is probably fairly minimal. But let's see how that changes over time. But generally, what happens in a forest or in any space really, if you've got bare dirt, bare soil, one of the first things that will happen is there may be a seed in the ground already, or a seed may be blown in, or a bird may drop a seed, or there's a seed. It starts with a seed, and then it rains, and then that seed starts to grow. I don't know if you guys on Zoom can see this properly. Let me know if you need it to be bigger. It sends down roots, and then starts sending up leaves, and it starts to grow. Apologies for my terrible drawing, but that's a plant growing. So in this generally, in Australia and in the ecosystem we're dealing with here, does anyone know the first type of plant that typically might move into this space?
Grass.
Yep. So we call it a pioneer plant. They're the pioneers, the first plants that move in. Does anyone know a typical species? Yeah, sometimes they're grasses. Grasses often come in first.
Pigeon pea.
Yeah, pigeon pea is one of them. So pigeon pea is not a native Australian plant, but it's something we've used in the food forest to do the pioneering role. Another type of legume that is sorry?
I'm online. I don't know. I was going to say wattle.
Yes, wattle. So wattles are Australian native pioneer plants, and often if you look around, if you come down here at some stage and look around, wherever there's cleared ground, you'll often see wattles starting to pop up. So what do the wattles do? So the wattles are pretty tough, they're hardy, they have evolved to take on that role and to be the first plants, some of the first plants to grow. They send down a root, and the first thing that happens, well, one of the first things that happens is, actually I think this is the first thing, actually someone tell me, what's one of the first things that happens with what do wattles and legumes typically have going for them?
Fix nitrogen.
Have pods? Yeah, what was that one?
They fix nitrogen in the soil.
Yeah, so they fix nitrogen in the soil. How do they do that?
Nodules on their roots.
Yep, they form nodules on their roots. So the roots will grow. And you'll literally, if you dig one up, you'll see these nitrogen balls or little blobs of stuff on their roots, and they're actually nitrogen. How do they get there? What's the process?
The bacteria?
Yeah, bacteria. So they have a relationship with a bacteria that lives in the soil, and the bacteria actually finds nitrogen out of the soil air and turns it into fertilizer pellets for them and feeds the plant. So they've got what would be called, it's a symbiotic relationship with bacteria. And that is part of the mechanism that allows these guys to survive in this totally poor soil without much nutrients in it. So bacteria is one.
So are there already bacteria in seeds?
Yeah, well, that's the question. The bacteria hopefully are on the seed or in the soil already. If the bacteria aren't there, then that doesn't happen. But it seems to be maybe bacteria is everywhere. So it's a specific type of bacteria that lives on that plant, fixes nitrogen, allows it to grow, in very, very poor nutrient soils. So that's one of the mechanisms. There's another one as well. Another organism that will live under the ground and fungi. So there's fungi that does the same thing, and it's called mycorrhizal fungi. So it lives in association with the roots, and it also forms these kind of spiderweb-like, almost like roots, and it goes around through the soil, and it actually breaks down soil and brings nutrients to the plant. So the fungi and the bacteria, we might call them mutualistic organisms is in the soil, or symbiotic. Okay, so they're actually feeding the plant, and in turn the plant is feeding the bacteria and the fungi. How does the plant do that?
From the sunlight?
Yes. Yep. So we've got the sun, and this is the absolute driving factor of all life on the earth, is sun and photosynthesis. Without that, it doesn't happen. Okay, so the sun shines down on the leaves photosynthesize, they take carbon dioxide in, they spit out oxygen, and there's lots of other stuff going on. They turn the carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, and they pump it down into the soil. So they use some of it, half of it to build themselves, and the other half they use to feed the fungi and the bacteria. So that's the start of your ecosystem. Then, what happens? The plant keeps growing, and then it starts to, some of these leaves, you'll see around here, the leaves actually fall off, and they fall on the surface. So you get leaves and sticks and things, and some of the roots start to die off. What happens then?
It rots.
It rots. How does it rot? How does it break down?
Nitrogen.
Yeah, so they're the elements. So it's basically, again, fungi and bacteria. Different types of fungi and bacteria, which we would call the decomposers. And they're breaking down all that organic matter in the soil. So there's fungi, bacteria, there's other things as well. So there's, what else is going to break down?
Worms?
Yeah, worms. Water? Yeah, water's a critical part of this process.
Other microorganisms.
Other microorganisms, things like little mites. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that's chewing on these leaves and chewing on these sticks and breaking them down, and then the bacteria break down the bits that are broken down. So you got all these decomposers doing the decomposing, and all of these are building healthy soil. And this happens in any ecosystem, whether it's native or a veggie garden or anything. So some of you guys have no doubt heard me bang on about this before, but repetition is good. So we got the decomposers, we got the mutualists. Their plant keeps growing, keeps dropping organic matter, the soil gets a little bit richer and a little bit richer. And then you've got another group of animals that move in, and they feed on the bacteria and the fungi. So things like nematodes, and I've got to remember what they are, little critters. Okay, and they eat bacteria and fungi, and what they do when they eat that is they release nutrients, and then the nutrients go into the soil, feed the plant. So you get like worms, little nematodes, little mites. There's heaps of those living and feeding off the bacteria and the fungi. The soil's getting better, the plant's growing more, it's dropping more stuff. And then I've completely lost it.
So are there some nematodes that are good for the soil? Because all I hear about is bad ones.
Yeah. Yes, that's a really good question. You've probably heard of root knot nematodes, which we have here. So there's different types of nematodes. They're a microscopic worm, and they're all over where there's soil, there's nematodes. Some of them parasitize the plants. So some of them will actually feed off the plants. They won't give anything back. They just take from the plant, and they end up sort of knotting up the root system and destroying the plant. So there's that going on. Some of them eat bacteria and fungi. Some of them eat other nematodes. So even in the nematode world, there's a diversity of what's going on. Nematodes eat fungi. Fungi eats nematodes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do the nematodes look like?
You can't see them. They're microscopic worms. So imagine they're just a tiny, tiny little worm. And they just cruise through the soil. There's another thing going on. There's another group of animals in here called... Oh, I had it. Let me get my notes. Excuse me. I've been looking at these things forever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not on there. You know what they are.
It's not like the catids, the crickets and things.
Well, they're further up the food chain. There's a protozoa. So protozoa eat bacteria. So there's all this. I could go on about we only, as humans, we only know 5% of what's going on under the ground in terms of this microbiology. But the basic, it starts with bacteria. It starts with photosynthesis. Bacteria, fungi, things eat the fungi. This food chain happens, and maybe we could dump that to screen share. So I've got a screen share just to demonstrate how complex it is. And you're probably wondering, why does he keep talking about soil? What's this got to do with frogs and birds and lizards? And it's a really fair question. And you guys aren't going to be able to see this unless you go and look over Julian's shoulder. Is there one here? No, that's just what I had. So this, I don't know if you guys can see.
Yeah.
This is a graphic representation of the food web, and so all of those, each of these arrows is a flow of energy. So whenever something eats something, the energy from whatever gets eaten goes into the thing that eats it. So you can see it starts with, algae these guys are all the photosynthesizers, and plants as well. Goes down into the organic matter, gets eaten by bacteria, fungi, shredders, nematodes, springtails, mites, and it gets more and more complex. And these guys are eating these guys. Everyone's eating everyone. It's just really. I just don't know how they get by. They must all be so stressed. But you can see the energy. Where's the energy flowing towards?
To the smallest, tiniest organism, like virus, bacteria.
The nematodes?
Answers on this piece of paper.
Oh, the arthropods.
Yeah, so all the arrows eventually come up to here. And this group of animals called the predaceous arthropods. Does anyone know what a predaceous arthropod is? It sounds like someone who comes to dinner and doesn't leave.
Us, humans.
We are, well, we're not arthropods, we are predaceous, yeah. So arthropods, yeah,
You've got a hard shell on the outside, I think.
yeah, and I think arthropods have segmented legs.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you know? Crickets, ants. What else lives in the soil ecosystem that you would?
Cicadas.
Cockroaches, cicadas. I think they're predaceous. No, they're vegetarians.
Beetles?
Yeah, cicadas are vegetarian.
Yeah, beetles. So anything that crawls around around your soil and eats other things is a predaceous, well, we can call predaceous arthropod.
Silverfish.
Silverfish.
What about a snail?
A snail eats vegetables. So there's another way you can categorize all these things into what are they? Primary producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers. So you got the primary producers are the plants. Primary consumers are the things that eat the plants. Secondary consumers are the things that eat the plant. The things that eat the plants. Carnivores. So where do the arrows start?
Bacteria. Mycorrhizal.
Yeah. The arrows should start here
Algae, moss.
with the sun. I don't know if you guys saw it. So the energy flows from the sun through the plant, through all these soil organisms, and ends up in things like spiders and ants and wasps and centipedes and millipedes and all those things that crawl around in the soil and eat the things that eat the things below them. And everything's eating each other. So that's a food web in the soil. What do some birds eat? They eat arthropods. What do some frogs eat? Predaceous arthropods. What do some lizards eat? Oh, yeah. Right, so this is it's what happens under here that drives the energy for the system above the ground. Okay, so that's why it's, alright, so as our plant keeps growing, is it only one plant? Or one type of plant generally? And then, no, so you get other plant. Once this plant, which is a pioneer, starts to change the conditions of the soil, it'll be more fertile, there'll be more carbon and more nutrients in the soil, then you might get other plants growing. You might get, the conditions might be fine for trees to grow, for other types of shrubs to grow. So you get more diversity. So the plants that couldn't grow just in sand wouldn't be there without this guy sort of leading the way. So you get more complexity. This wattle might turn into a tree, they're fast growing, short lived. Fix the soil. When he dies, lays down on the ground. What have we got? What have we got now? Sorry?
Bacteria.
Yeah, lizard habitat. So more fungi food and bacteria food, but you've got piles of sticks, piles of logs, great for lizards to hide in, great for frogs to hide in, great for snakes to hide in, all those things. So the habitat gets more and more complex over time. As plants grow, they fall over, they drop branches, they drop more leaves. This layer gets deeper, you get more worms.
They also flower profusely.
Yeah, so that's another really important part of that's a flower.
I want to say that they say that they didn't have the bacteria back then, long time ago in prehistory, to decompose the trees, and that's why we have now oil, because it was just layer, and it was not decomposing because there was not a bacteria back then. That's why we have oil now.
Yeah, in that particular spot.
Interesting, because now it decomposes.
Yeah, I think, I'm not an oil making expert, but I think where the oil is where there were swamps, so there was no air, so that it's the aerobic bacteria that breaks down. That's a really good point. So we need air in that mix as well. So, but yeah, that's right. Oil is just old plants. Sun power.
Yeah.
So everything's solar powered, even petrol driven cars. That's another story. So we got.
You can't sell the oil.
yeah, that's wrong. the new market. That's right. So over time, as different plants grow, it gets more. You get more a thing called diversity. So lots more different plants, different flowers, different leaves, different nutrients. Different animals will come and live there. So it's all about, that's what it's all about. It all starts with that little seed in the soil and the soil bacteria and fungi.
And so, Steve, when we compost or put our worm juice into the soil, it's effectively feeding the entire ecosystem.
Yeah. So, yeah, totally. Yeah, the beauty of compost is it's a bacteria and fungi farm. And when you put that on the soil, you're seeding it with all this great life, as well as nutrients and things.
Yeah. You do get a lot of anaerobic bacteria in the soil too.
Yeah, you get some of that as well.
Gas gangrene. You get a lot of anaerobes as well.
Yeah, so if your soil, you might have pockets of soil that don't have much air in them for whatever reason, you get the anaerobic bacteria as well. So that's the general flow, I think. I don't know, any questions? Is that like totally just
soil that doesn't drain very well?
I have a question. Like,
yes.
Sorry, the wattle. Are we talking about the tree, the wattle, the yellow one that is flowering now?
Yeah, they're flowering at the moment. The wattle trees, they're one of our pioneer plants.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I guess when you're thinking about your design and how you progress as we go further along the course, they're really useful plants for starting your ecosystem and for really feeding your soil and getting that going.
Is the list of the pioneer plants somewhere?
No, you won't need a list because you'll have the knowledge about what pioneer plants are and how they work. So and Jan, was it Jan who said anything with a pod, basically. Is a legume, generally off fixed nitrogen. But yeah, we do have a plant list as well that you can.
We've got a comment here from Marie McCarthy who says native ecosystems equal healthy ecosystems, which equal biodiversity, which equal more sustainability for all.
Yeah, totally. It's a spiral. It's an upward spiral. It's a healthy spiral, and it's not hard to do. You know, this just happens. Over here, we've got 10 hectares of Banksia scrub, which is a remnant ecosystem. Any forest, any ecosystem, these processes just happen naturally. The best, if you want to create, and what we're doing in this course is learning how do we create that. And often the best thing you can do in creating this is just leave it alone. set up the conditions and then step back and let it grow. But we'll talk about that as we go.
Can I ask you something, please, Steve, in the context of this? If someone, hypothetically, wanted to have just wattles, clumped together, can there be such a thing as too much nitrogen in the soil as a result of their properties, too many nutrients in the soil, and could it be a bad thing, or no, or it doesn't matter?
There are situations where you could have too much nutrient in the soil. Traditionally, Australian native plants, because this course is about using native local plants to create habitat. If you bring lots of nutrients in from elsewhere, you can have too many nutrients. I would think, someone might correct me, but I would think if you're just using wattles to improve your soil, I don't think that will actually cause that situation where you get too much. Yeah, I've never experienced that.
They've become a problem in America, wattles, because they're not native. And
well, they're a problem in Australia as well. They're actually, in a lot of places, a lot of wattles are weeds. Like there are wattles around here that are real problem weeds because this is what they do. If there's a spot, they're going to, they grow. They throw out lots of seed. They grow fast.
Why is that
They reproduce. Because, good question.
well, I think it's too many. You don't get the native surviving.
Yeah, but I was thinking.
Yeah, so, and that's a really interesting sort of philosophical conversation. But the idea is that, say, in this system, we value that we'd like to keep it as plants that the wattles could potentially dominate and would disrupt the system, and we'd lose a lot of diversity. So that, I think that that's.
Are they like other pioneer plants, but they don't actually do well in established places? Because I know there's other pioneers that like to have an open space with lots of stands and like to crowd it out.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, and that's part of the what we call the succession of the ecosystem. So, if you start with the wattles that like lots of sun, they don't mind it hot, they like it poor soil. Eventually, as other plants move in and start creating shade, changing the soil conditions, the wattles end up disappearing. They don't like that ecosystem, so they die out. So then you move into another mix of plants, which I think, it's in the garden context, we kind of feel like we put it in and that's it, that's how it's going to stay. But the habitat ecosystem model, it changes all the time. It's always changing. So what you see here now in 10 years' time can be completely different. That's part of the fun, But
like humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. It's always changing. So
Steve, sorry, can I ask a question? Are there different kinds of wattle, and in a small garden, would one kind be better than another?
There are heaps of different types of wattle, and I think in our plant list we've got two. We've mentioned two that can be quite good for a small garden. They're the shrub type, so you can grow them. They're anywhere from like 1/2 metre to 1 metre up to big trees. So there's a really big range of wattles. I think we'll do one today. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some trees.
Oh, okay.
You can see this time of year is great for wattle spotting because they're all flowering, so it's pretty easy. But yeah, lots of different varieties. So out of all that, now that I've so it's quite messy. These things are challenging because part of getting the ideas across to people is keeping it simple. But this is complex, so I feel like I hopefully haven't confused you. But if you were to pull out of all of this that we just talked about, what are some of the key things for creating diverse habitat and for animals?
Doing pioneer plants.
Pioneer plants.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
Don't remove dead plants or fallen members.
Yeah. So not removing the dead stuff, the stuff that falls down, the messy stuff. Matt, who works for the council and the bush care guy, I think he's doing. You'll meet him in the propagation section. He's got this awesome mantra, I guess, or saying that him and all his crew who are doing bush regeneration, which is messy is good. So messy is good, you know. If you're looking into that ecosystem there, it's not neat, not tidy. There's dead stuff. There's things falling on the ground. It's still pretty. It's beautiful in its own way. You know, it's not highly manicured and cared for. And the messiness provides all these little places for the animals to live. So messy is good. So yeah, what do you think, Sam? There's a couple of other things here that are requiring. So that could talked about the logs and the sticks that have fallen on the ground. What else is important for your habitat value? Diversity. So lots of different plants. The more different plants you can get into your space, the better.
Pollination.
Yeah. So flowers. I'll just circle the flowers. And next week, when we do bees, we'll talk about the different types of flowers and having different flowers for different bees and birds. The flowers are really important. They're probably the key ones. The other thing that you can is really simple. Something that you can all do is this layer of mulch on top of the soil. So unless you want to have lots of pioneers growing all the time, a nice thick layer of mulch. I don't know if you can see it. We'll show you the mulch on the garden here, because it drives this system, this fungi and this bacteria, which drives the ecosystem. All right.
I started to using a compost app. It's free, and people around Sydney are giving their compost to your compost bin, or vice versa. If you have compost or you have a bin, you can receive it. Have you heard of it? Oh, okay, yeah, it's called Share Waste. And now I have 5 people who bring compost to me.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1 week.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, everybody should maybe look into it.
Yeah. Okay, so that hopefully that gives you something to think about over the next week in terms of what is habitat. It's fairly we could list the things that make good habitat as flowers, diversity, logs. Oh, there's one thing that isn't there that is awesome for habitat, which kind of doesn't fit into this story, but it's something that's really important. Water. Yeah, water. So, so some sort of, if you can include water, a pond, your habitat value of your garden increases almost exponentially. You get such an important part of life. So most animals will get their water out of the soil, but but it's, I think I don't know. The thing with this is it's that complexity. It's the web of life. Everything eats something else. And we got birds in the mix. Then put birds in. What do birds eat? That looks like a bat.
Snakes, if you're thinking about it.
That's the worst bird ever. Snakes. Birds eat snakes, lizards, insects. And these are all provided by this ecosystem.
Worms.
Worms, they love it. Worms. Fruit, yeah, they eat fruit. Fruit. Some fruit. Nectar in the flowers. So it's all that diversity. Okay. Yep. Any more questions? Any Zoom? You guys got any questions?
What's the? I just wanted to ask, how important is provenance in our area in terms of planting in our garden?
It depends who you're talking to. So, do you want to explain provenance?
It's like you plant seedlings or shrubs or other trees that have originally grown in that area, so that you're sort of keeping it as native as possible. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's the idea. So there's, we talk about, I guess, native plants, inverted commas, being plants that are from Australia.
Yep.
The provenance means they're from your local area, so they were here before the Europeans, or they've been here for a long time. They've got a long history in this area. What would be the benefit I guess let's explore that. What's the benefit of choosing plants that are from this particular area as opposed to, say, from Perth or Victoria?
They're gonna survive.
Grow faster.
Yeah.
Grow well.
Yeah, why?
Because the conditions are optimal.
They're talking about a million years.
They've adapted to this.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other side of that is that the animals that were native, they're adapted to these plants.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
And the name is Profans. Was not those plants who are been here before we came.
Yeah,
Providence?
Providence, I think they call it. Yeah, what's its providence, which I think generally means where provenance, where something is from. So
Okay.
yeah, so there are lots of good reasons. You know, they have evolved to live here. They're used to the conditions, the soil, and the critters that live on them have adapted to them. You know, there's some amazing co-adaptions where plants and animals have evolved over hundreds of, millions of years or whatever together. And in, there's I don't know, there's wasps that only feed on certain types of orchids, and that orchid only reproduces if that wasp feeds on it. So there's these really amazing symbiotic relationships between plants and animals that that doesn't work with any other animal or any other plant. So there is that. That's one extreme. But yeah, I think that's the idea. But it doesn't have to be. That's I guess one way of doing it. The other end of the extreme, you could use totally introduced plants and create awesome habitat as well. But you may not necessarily attract the particular. If there's an animal that is specific to a certain plant or group of plants, then it may not work for them. So, native bees love rocket flowers, for example. They don't know whether they're from around here or not, but some other animals.
And some native plants from Australia can be weedy when taken to other areas. So.
Yeah. So I think, like all these things, there's always kind of value judgments thrown, your personal perspective on things. So yeah, I guess you got to decide what's right for you, your space, and that's part of your design process, is figuring out what do you want to create personally. Take it from there. We'll give you the big picture. You can kind of dive in as deep as you want with different things. All right, we're going to now. That we've got our heads are full of like ecosystems and things. We're going to look at some plants just to ground ourselves again. So we've got our 3 new plants for this week, and we're going to go and find them. We're going to look at them, and we're going to learn how to identify them. So let's go for a wander.
So I'll just mention, hopefully everybody got the plant list yesterday via email. That's a really good reason to register. So thank you for all those who are here but haven't registered. But if you haven't registered, I didn't know to send you that plant list. So if you want this plant list, please contact me afterwards. And register each time because it may update.
All right, so let's go. Can you send out the list of week by week? Or... All right, so we'll start here. You doing that one? Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, you do need to register week to week, each week, if you're on Zoom.
Yeah. All right. So the thing I didn't talk about in our ecosystem model, we did talk about it last week. And our plants are kind of respond to another aspect of the ecosystem in terms of where they grow or how they grow. Can you remember what the different plants we'd be looking at in that regard?
Grass, shrubs, trees.
Yeah. So ground. Wait, what was that one?
Climbers?
Yeah. So things that kind of grow on the ground or close to the ground, and then things that are middling, so shrubs, and then our trees. So this guy is it can be a ground cover, or it can be, as you can see, it'll climb, it'll scramble up things. Who knows what this one is?
Herbaceous scandens.
Herbaceous scandens. There's a really good photo of it in your in the books. Snake vine. It climbs. Thank you.
How do you spell that?
Hibbertia. Herbaceous scandens. This one. So there's a few different varieties. There's a climbing one. There's a shrubby one. They're very hardy, and all you guys who are here, feel free to come and pick a bit and feel it and touch it. Oh, actually, one at a time. I forget always.
Is that one local
Smell?
Yes. Good question. I'm not an expert on exactly on the provenance of these things, but I've seen it growing in the bush. I'm pretty sure it's pretty common around here. Really hardy. It's got fairly thick, leathery kind of leaves. It's got this beautiful flowers a lot. Quite often, like we're in winter and it's flowering, and really pretty yellow flowers. Good for birds, lizards and butterflies. So lizards particularly, if this is growing on the ground and scrambling over the ground, how could that be good for lizards?
For shade.
Yeah, get somewhere to hide and some shelter. That's right.
Is it
So,
for bees?
I think it would be. It's not on it doesn't have the bee symbol on here.
It doesn't smell sweet too.
No, it doesn't have a lot of nectar.
But it's yellow and it's a simple flower, so it might be good for bees.
Right. Do you mind just mentioning, so people on Zoom, which page you're on?
Okay, we're on page 9. So page 9 of your booklet.
Sorry, it's minuscule, isn't it?
Is this a process?
I don't know. So yeah, I'm not. When we get to the nursery, or whenever Matt comes here, ask him. I'm going to push all the detailed plant knowledge questions onto Matt, and he's going to love me for that. All right. So that's what's it called?
Herbaceous scandens.
Yeah. So really, fairly distinctive plant. It's got these long runners. The leaves are fairly shiny, and the flower they give away. So herbaceous scandens, really useful plant. So that's our ground cover and or climber layer.
Is it like full sun or shade?
Well, it's fairly shady here where we are, so I think it would grow in both. I've seen it in full sun, and we've got it all around the building here, and it does survive in fairly reasonable shade. It gets some morning sun, but there's one around the corner in full shade. I think that seems to be going okay. Yeah.
Just doesn't have any flowers.
Just doesn't have the flowers. There you go. Yeah. All right. So what's that called again?
Herbaceous.
Snake vine. Herbaceous scandens. All right. What we're going to do, we're going to look at this guy because it's flowering. Is this COVID safe to hand out bits of plant?
Yes.
No. Yes. No. Yes.
I say
No.
yes.
So I'll just wave it in front of you. So does anyone know what this is?
The wattle of some sort?
Yeah, it's a wattle of some sort. So it's Acacia. Close. It's a little bit of a finer leaf. So a few people have said longifolia, but it's a little bit finer. I think this one's called Suaviolens, which is in your book. And I'll just put this on the ground. You can look at it.
Has it got like spiky leaves?
Sorry?
Has it got spiky leaves?
Not really, no. No, they're quite soft. Yeah, they're quite soft. But this Suaviolens, Acacia Suaviolens, so it should be in your shrub layer.
22.
Okay.
22, thank you.
Thank you.
Page 22. So shrub. It's this one is a local or a provenance. It's actually really pretty. I like it. It's got a nice red tinge to the trunk. These fine leaves and these beautiful pods. I hate to pull them off, but you need to get a close look. Oh, there's some down there. So they're really quite distinctive.
These are the seeds of the plant.
Yes, the seeds are inside that pod. And what does that do for our soil? What does the acacia do for our soil?
Fixes nitrogen.
Yeah, so it's one of the nitrogen fixers. It's got a pod, so it's a pioneer. So it's meant to grow to 1.5 meters high. Plants don't always sort of play by the rules. They don't read the book. This one, what do you notice about wattles? Particular?
Dense. Oh.
Yeah, they can be very dense. Yeah, skinny leaves. Actually, this is really quite interesting.
Fast growing.
Fast growing. What about the flowers? Yeah, they flower in winter, so they're flowering at this time of year when not much else is flowering. You tend to get a lot of flowers in spring and summer. So why is that good to have some wattles in your garden? Food for bees and birds and things. So it's
flower in summer.
no, they tend to flower around now, and that's it.
Oh.
Yeah, and yeah, often you'll find lots of insects around your wattle because they've got the flowers in spring. I just wanted to point out, if you had a close look, how long have we got? If I launch into this, not very long. I'll do it quickly. So this is actually, if you have a close look, next time you're out and about, pick a wattle leaf and have a close look at it, and you'll feel at the end of the wattle leaf is a little spiky bit. That's actually the leaf. This bit is a stem.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So this plant has adapted to what?
Dry.
To dry. Okay. So this doesn't actually, your leaves in your plants transpire. They let water out of the leaves. So this is a classic mechanism for saving water. It's a tiny little leaf on the end, but that it still photosynthesizes. So the stem. Yeah, right on the end, there's literally a little spiky bit. That's the leaf. Okay, so the stem photosynthesizes. So it's adapted to this climate, to these conditions. So that's the second one, and we've got one to go, which I think is in our tree category. I'll just check.
How long did it take to get this like this?
This one's probably 2, maybe 3 years old at most. Yeah. There's one just down here which we love. Well, we love them all. But this one's really cool. This guy, which you have to experience by sticking your hand in here, and we got 6 minutes. So this is really, really, really spiky, like needles, and they call it something to do with needles. I think this is a dagger hakea. Sounds violent. So hakea terretifolia. Actually, what's that one called?
Acacia swabiolens.
Stop it. Swabiolens. Acacia swabiolens. Or thereabouts. Okay.
What?
Anyone know what this one is? Yeah, it's a hakea.
What?
Yeah, I think it's the terretifolia. I have to get that confirmed. Literally like needles. These are, if you put your hand in there, you'd feel it. So really spiky. What's that good? Why is that good? Yeah, little birds. Little birds love. It's great protection. If you're a little bird and you're being chased by one of those wattle birds, you can hide in here and you'll be okay. So really good bird habitat. They get flowers. It's flowering at the moment as well, which is interesting. So that's what's that one?
Sorry, what's the name?
Hakea. I think it's page 27.
Yeah, that's it.
Hakea terretifolia.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, the tablet's just having a little freak out, so I can't type it to you just now. I will in a second.
All right, and there's lots of different hakeas, but they're great for habitat for birds, particularly. All right, so there's another 3 to add to your armory when you get ready to your design. So we're at 2:30 almost. We got 4 minutes. I'll get the guys who are here. If you stay here, we'll just do at the end of each session that we do, we do a quick round robin, where everyone just shares one thing that they remember from the session. So if you Zoomers, Julian will just let me know who's who. We'll call out your name. If you can just quickly share one thing. We've got 4 minutes.
So if we could start with, so we'll do this in alphabetical order according to the Zoom list. So that'll give you a chance to prepare for you coming up. The first person is Ali.
Hi. The main thing that stuck out for me as a new thing is that the wattles being pioneer plants and the role they play in putting nitrogen into an ecosystem.
Thank you.
Anya?
I was going to say the same thing about the wattle, but the other thing is just getting to know the plants. So I wanted to look more into this snake wine for my garden. So this was interesting for me to learn a little bit more about.
Great, thank you.
Atta?
Yes, so for me, something very interesting was the soil food web, the Protozoa, the nematodes, different type of nematodes, and the Mycorrhizal Fungi. That was something very interesting that I'll do more research about them, for sure.
Thank you.
Christina?
Hi. Well, I just really liked the idea of starting from scratch, that one little seed can really grow into something so diverse. That really impressed me. I never even thought about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jacqueline?
Messy is good.
Thank you.
Well, I've just discovered that Zoom rearranges everybody depending on whether you're on mute or not. So it's going to get a bit free-for-all now. Claudine?
Yep, I'd say that I learned more about how fungi and bacteria create a complex food habit, and it's really fascinating.
Thank you.
Gay?
Yeah, I was going to say the messy is good.
Yeah, thank you.
Although the mulch breaks down very quickly, so yeah, you have to keep adding the mess.
Yep. Great.
Jean?
Oh, hi. I really want a sweet-scented wattle. And Arta, see you at the community garden tomorrow morning.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Jamie? Hey, Judy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. It broke up. Sorry. I just was fascinated by how the whole ecosystem evolves. You know, and how everything leads to everything else. It was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Nick.
Oh, good afternoon. I just discovered that in our garden there are many things that I could not identify, and incidentally, I thought they were grass or wilds. You know, the one with the sharp, the bush or the tree with the sharp things. I didn't know that it's good for the butterflies.
Cool. That's good. Thank you.
Oh, and I killed it.
Oh, now you know. That's how we learn.
Leslie Ann?
Learning about the whole ecosystem and how it works together, and also fascination with wattle. So it was really interesting finding out more about wattle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalia?
Okay, I love the fact that messy is good, but for me it's also about leaving dead plants, or whether there are logs, or if there's a dead tree, like it provides habitat for possums or bats. Yeah, I like the fact that there can be a dead tree that's still serving a purpose in the garden.
Great, thanks.
Kit?
Yeah, I love the vertical cross section at the beginning and that beautiful drawing that got inhabited with all of those little creatures and the sense of being under the soil, and then also moving forward with the idea of plant succession.
Cool, thank you.
Red honeycomb.
Admittedly, I put this on for my son. He loves gardening. He's homeschooled. so he was listening to it in the background. But I found the nematodes and the fungi really interesting.
Cool, thank you.
And Kim.
Oh, hey. Yeah, for me, besides the fact of learning that wattles are nitrogen fixers and that they are pioneering plants, nematodes is also a thing that I hadn't thought about, and how they can be important in the balance of the fungi and the bacteria, which is really cool. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Have I missed anyone? Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. And next week, bees.
Yeah,
native bees. Fascinating, amazing world of native bees. Yeah, blows your mind.
I forgot to email it, but if you can, I'd highly recommend getting the Gina Carlson Native Bees of New South Wales poster. It's fabulous. And there's the matching pairs of the predators and the non-predators of the bees that you can see in there. So it's Gina Carlson. There's lots of places that sell it. You might even get it by next Friday.
And Julian, can you just reiterate what we're doing here today and where people can register for future sessions?
Absolutely. So this is Gardening on the Wild Side. It's a 10-part series. Today is week 2. So they all do connect together, but if you're coming on Zoom, they also stand alone. You can email me, because all the people on Zoom, julian.lee@randwick.newsouthwales.gov.au, or if you go to Eventbrite, if you search in Eventbrite for Perma-Bee, and this is the interactive Zoom workshop. We'd love to have you here.
Thanks, Zoomers. Have a
See
good
you
week.
later, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.